Today's film has gore and zombies, so it has to be a 5 barf bag movie, right? Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Welcome to Sick Flicks, where I take a deep dive into the cinematic sewer to help you embrace your inner gore geek. I'm Mike Bracken, aka The Horror Geek, and today we're covering the third and final film in Lucio Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy, The House by the Cemetery. Released in 1981, House by the Cemetery is another Italian splatter film from the man fans christened the Godfather of Gore. This one features another nonsensical narrative and all your favorite Fulci trademarks. Well, except one, but more on that later. So, can Fulci and Gino De Rossi earn another perfect score? Let's get to the gore and find out. We fade in on this House by the Cemetery. Nice work, Fulci. We're not wasting any time here. I can just see the Zillow listing for this place. This modest 4-bedroom home features 2 bathrooms, a luxurious master suite, and includes its very own graveyard. A perfect starter home for a young grave robber. We head inside where this 30-year-old teen is doing her best to make sure she dies horribly. Maybe just smoke some weed while you're here too. She's getting dressed, but look out. Sounds like Freddy Krueger might be squatting here. Anyway, she's still looking for Steve, and he finally shows up. Sorry, I was off looking for some aspirin. I've got a splitting headache. Then the killer's like, watch me make this knife disappear. Abracadabra. Look, this is probably going to hurt the house's market value, but on the bright side, he's got a cemetery right here for disposing of the corpses. That's handy. Then it's time for the credits. We've got a Catriona MacColl sighting. This is her third appearance on Sick Flicks. And here's Paolo Malco, last seen on Sick Flicks as the doctor in Fulci's New York Ripper. And Ania Pieroni, who got her throat slashed in Tenebrae. And Giovanni Frezza, everyone's favorite annoying Italian horror film child actor. Last seen here at the end of Demons. Oh, and 4 writers' credits, including one for Fulci and frequent collaborator Dardano Sacchetti. Fun fact, Elisa Briganti is Sacchetti's wife. And produced by Fabrizio De Angelis, who directed Killer Crocodile. Jesus, this is like a Sick Flicks Who's Who at this point. The credits end and we get this crazy transition shot that takes us to New York and Giovanni Frezza. Fulci eye zoom, everyone drink. Anyway, Frezza has this ridiculous character named Bob. I mean, really, who calls a child Bob? He and the family are in the process of moving out of New York. They've been getting prank calls from a guy who sounds like Donald Duck. If you guess they're headed to the House by the Cemetery, give yourself a screenwriter's credit. And really, there are already 3 of them on this movie, so there's plenty more to go around. At any rate, Bob's got issues.
Mommy, why does that girl keep telling me I shouldn't go there?
Oh, honey, that's because you're schizophrenic. Okay, so Bob is one of Italian horror's most infamously divisive characters. Not only does he have a weirdly inappropriate name for a child, but they also stuck him with this terrible dubbed voice.
I guess she had something to do.
And zoom back on the photo where young Winona Ryder is like, will someone get me out of this damn house? With that out of the way, we can get to another house establishing shot. I'm getting a distinct The Horror Show vibe with all these shots of the house. Don't worry though, it has a purpose. It's here to introduce us to this creepy little girl from the picture. Back in New York, we've got a Lucio Fulci cameo. And Edward Mannix is doing his English dub.
I mean, apart from the $5,000 more you're going to be earning a year, you were Peterson's protege, and also, I believe, one of his best friends.
Edward Mannix might have more Sick Flicks appearances than anyone without ever actually appearing in a video. Fulci's just here to help with the exposition. Turns out Dr. Norman has taken over some vital research on suicide after his colleague, wait for it, committed suicide.
Now, I know you're itching to clear up his suicide.
And with that, Fulci's like, I'm out of this movie. Back at home, everyone's ready to move to New England.
But darling, you could have at least gone to pay your condolences.
What do you say to a widow whose husband had another woman, and who one fine day slaughtered that other woman, after which he hanged himself?
Sorry about your loss, but you're really better off? Look at the bright side, be glad he didn't kill you? I mean, those are things I'd say, which is why I'm not a grief counselor. Then they head off with some funky driving music. Meanwhile, Creepy Girl's doing some window shopping. Man, this wax version of Melania Trump is terrifying. Hope you're ready for some more driving, because the road trip hasn't ended. Back with the Creepy Girl, things are getting weird. Looks like Kathy Griffin strikes again. Norman and Lucy stop to pick up the keys, and surprise, they're staying in the same house where the colleague killed himself.
Your predecessor was neat as a pin. They did tell you it's the same house, didn't they? Get the keys, Harold, would you please?
Hey, I'm on the phone here. Are your hands broken? Back outside, Bob's just chilling in the Buick wagon when the weird girl starts talking to him telepathically.
However, I thought I told you very clearly not to come.
Creepy. Norman and Lucy return to the car, but Bob's gone. Man, the 80s were crazy. You just leave your kid alone in an unlocked car while you ran errands. Don't worry though, he's not going to turn up on Unsolved Mysteries. He's just over here in the park playing with his Annabelle doll. And another establishing shot of the house. Then Lucy offers up this observation.
Norman,
Yeah?
this house is exactly like the one in the old photo.
What are the odds? I'd say pretty high since Darno Sacchetti wrote this. Norman's got a totally logical explanation for this, but Lucy doesn't look convinced.
There are probably hundreds of houses like it in the area.
Back inside, she's getting creeped out by the doll.
You really should take those pills Joe Baker prescribed.
Wait, did he just say you really should take those pills your baker prescribed? I never knew the Pillsbury Doughboy finished med school. Really though, drugs are the least of their worries because this is going on.
I guess this must be the cellar.
And Mrs. Gittleson had the door nailed shut. Quaint.
Say the word and I'll open it for you.
I'm sure that's nothing to be concerned about at all. And neither is this strange woman who just shows up in the kitchen. Christ, lady, ever hear her knocking? This is Ania Pieroni, who's going to be the new nanny. And just in case you didn't realize she bears an uncanny resemblance to that decapitated mannequin earlier, Fulci's going to remind you. Repeatedly.
Mrs. Gittleson sent me over.
Handy. Or maybe Hetty is more accurate. Work with me here. And another eye zoom. This movie's got two things in abundance. Eye zooms and establishing shots of the house. Speaking of which... Later that night, Norman finds this empty trapper keeper that someone named Freudstein apparently left behind. Then he starts hearing weird noises and a kid crying. But Bob's sound asleep. But the noises continue. Probably just the house settling, right? After some more investigation, he finds Anne, the babysitter, prying off the boards to the cellar.
Anne.
And reverse eye zoom. Fancy. Man, Fulci definitely got his money's worth on the eye zooms in this movie. Oh, sorry, I couldn't sleep. Did I wake you up by loudly ripping these nails out at 3 a.m.? And after all those eye zooms, you know what time it is. It's time for a house establishing shot. The next day, Norman's off to the library to do some research. Sure hope Fulci locked up all those flesh-eating tarantulas. Fun fact, this is the same library as the one used in The Beyond. Also, what the hell is going on with Carlo de Mejo's hair? It's like someone glued a shag rug to his head. And if you're keeping score at home, this is his second Sick Flicks appearance. He was also in Fulci's City of the Living Dead. Anyway, he's here to dole out some exposition too. He tells Norman he remembers him from his earlier visit with his daughter.
When you came to visit him with your daughter, don't you remember?
Look, I know Bob could use a haircut, but he's a boy. Oh, and he claims he's never been here before.
I never paid a visit to Dr. Peterson.
Weird. He leaves, but then this toothy goofball shows up with yet another order of exposition. Seems Norman's colleague was doing all sorts of weird research.
Over here, we find all the medical reports, death certificates, and lists of missing persons.
After that, this dude's like, what did the librarian say when he had to go? Time to book it.
You know where he hanged himself? There, from that railing.
Back at home, Bob's out in the cemetery where he finds this grave. Freudstein, where have we heard this name before? Hey, remember that weird girl? Yeah, she's still in this movie. I believe it's pronounced Freudstein. From there, we head back to the library for even more exposition.
Dr. Jacob Allen Freudstein is hereby suspended from the Medical Association and banned from practicing the medical profession for life.
Come on, Fulci, you're the godfather of gore. Throw me a bone here, or some entrails. Something, anything. And because this movie wants to hop around like a kangaroo on meth, it's back to the house. Sorry, no establishing shot this time. Lucy does find this trap door, though. Don't open it. The Necronomicon and a demonic Henrietta Noby are down there. Lucy's like, this place is disgusting. I'm calling the realtor and getting our security deposit back. I've heard of sweeping shit under the rug, but this is ridiculous. Turns out this is another Freudstein tombstone. Man, they buried Freudsteins everywhere around here. There's probably one in the back of the pantry. While investigating, she hears a strange noise. Someone must have turned on the AC because it's a bit nipply in here. After that, she starts hearing even more strange noises. But hey, at least there are no howler monkeys in this part of New England. It's been a while, so you know what that means. House establishing shot. They're establishing the shit out of this house, and it's the only house in the movie so far. Norman heads inside all like, "Lucy, I'm home," but no one's around. Man, my Ricky Ricardo sucks. Turns out she's sobbing in a corner, and Norman's like, there's only one way to solve this problem: drugs. Then it basically turns into a Folgers coffee commercial. Lucy wants to move out, but Norman's like, no way, we'll never get our security deposit back. And then he drops this bombshell.
Most of the old houses in the area have tombs in them. Really?
No kidding.
That's not even remotely true. After that, it's time to break into the cellar, but they're interrupted by Anne and a series of eye zooms. They do eventually unlock the cellar, and Norman heads down to investigate. Nothing down here but some old stag films and this ring. Norman's like, no one saw it. I can re-gift this to Lucy for Christmas and save some cash. Brilliant. But before he can set his plan in motion, he backs right into this jump scare. Then Lucy comes to investigate.
Like that.
Oh, it was just...
I've heard of batting an eye, but this seems ridiculous. Norman goes to rescue her and gets bit for his troubles. I get it now. This is Lucio Fulci's Italian Batman knockoff. Norman's about to turn into Bruce Wayne. He runs back upstairs with it still gnawed on his hand and only finally gets it off with some sheer determination. Also, that bat looks super fake. And then he does this. Yeah, just fling it around and spread that blood everywhere as a warning to the other bats. Naturally, everyone's ready to move to a place with less of a rodent infestation issue after that little display, so the real estate lady shows up. But no one's here, so she just lets herself in anyway.
Mrs. Boyle?
Oh, I lied. The killer's here, and he invites her to play some poker, only the kind without cards. Gotta say, this is the most uncomfortable looking ace in the hole I've ever seen. He's definitely not all in, though. After the game's over, he drags her away, and I wonder how he's gonna get all this mopped up before anyone notices. Then it's time to reestablish the house, because you might have forgotten we were in the house from the last scene, or something. After establishing that this is indeed a house, we head back for more exposition.
Peterson was reading up about a certain Dr. Freudstein, turn-of-the-century surgeon, who had a penchant for illegal experiments.
After a bunch of jibber-jabber, Norman finds this cassette. Sweet, it's the mixtape I made for that girl I was crushing on in the 8th grade. Oh wait, it's just dead Dr. Peterson reading from a book of ancient Kandarian funeral rituals. I'll listen. What could go wrong? Oh, and I zoom. The tape plays on, and Peterson sounds like maybe he's been reading too much H.P. Lovecraft.
The warnings of this house. Freudstein's house. That anguish crying.
We eventually wind up back in the basement, which is filled with body parts. No idea how they got the smell out to re-rent this place. Then the tape ends because someone accidentally recorded Never Gonna Give You Up over the rest of it, and thus the Rickroll was born. Well, this tape seems vital to the plot, so only one thing to do with it. Burn it so it can never be played again. Also, why is there an open flame in a library? I'm no fire marshal, but that seems like a code violation. Back at home, or at least I'm assuming it's home because no one gave me an establishing shot, Anne is heading to the basement to look for Bob. Guessing that's not gonna end well. She gets trapped down there, and I hate to be the guy to say I told you so, but I told you so. And she gets her throat slashed for her troubles. Slitterally. Bob heads down there to find her, but she's like, just a heads up, Bob, I'm already dead. He flees, screaming like a banshee, but gets his arm caught in the door while the killer slowly approaches. know Fulci's not gonna kill a kid. Well, at least not in this movie. Bob gets his mother and they head down to the basement. But how is there no blood down here? Naturally, they find nothing because no one ever believes a kid in a horror movie.
It's the truth, Mommy. Honest, I saw I rolled down the stairs.
Bob, there's nothing there. Believe me.
Meanwhile, Norman's busy looking for Freudstein's tomb, but it's not in the cemetery. Wonder where it could be. Bob can't leave well enough alone and heads back to the basement. Who knew Massachusetts had werewolves? He heads down and the door slams behind him. You'd think by now people would figure out that they should prop that door open. Then he sees these creepy eyes without a face. Maybe it's Billy Idol. And eye zoom shot. Don't drink. I don't want to be responsible for your case of alcohol poisoning. He's trapped, but Lucy can't work a simple door lock and breaks the key. Luckily for them, the killer's taking his sweet-ass time.
Mommy, hurry!
With things looking bleak, Norman shows up. He's gonna axe the door down, but surprise, the killer's holding Bob's head right in harm's way. Catriona MacColl can relate. Christopher George almost pickaxed her in the face in City of the Living Dead. While he's trying to Paul Bunyan the door, he drops this exposition bomb.
Don't worry, Bob. I'll get you out.
Why? Who's in there? Who's in this house?
Dr. Freudstein.
Somehow he misses Bob's head, but hits Freudstein instead. Look, man, I'd lend you a hand. All you had to do was ask. Bob flees from Freudstein, but finds all these dead bodies just hanging around. When did he have time to put all of these up? Norman and Lucy finally get through the door, but they're nice enough to drop some more exposition on us before running to save their kid.
He needs human victims to renew his cells. That's how he stays alive.
Then it's time for a showdown as Norman and Freudstein square off in mortal combat. You have the upper hand now, but not for long, Norm. Norman is disarmed, but thank God there's a conveniently placed table of deadly weapons nearby, and Freudstein waits patiently for him to rearm himself. Then he stabs him, and it turns out Freudstein is basically full of rancid meat gravy and maggots. Yummy. He's like, just once, before I die, can you say my name correctly? It's Freudstein. No? Okay, how about I just rip out your vocal cords so you can't say anything instead? With Norman dead, Freudstein decides this is a good time to take a break and let Lucy and Bob work on escaping through the tombstone. Because sure, why not? He does eventually clock back in and drags her down the stairs to her doom. I'm a doctor and I'm prescribing this 12-step program for your face. Then he's back for Bob, who was miraculously saved by May and heads off with her and her mother to live as ghosts? Hell if I know. Then we get one more establishing shot of the house and this ridiculous title card that wasn't actually written by Henry James, but Lucio Fulci pretending to be Henry James. And I mean really, it's easy to get the two confused. It's no stretch to say that House by the Cemetery is my least favorite film in Fulci's Gates of Hell trilogy. It's got a meandering plot that basically boils down to zombie needs to eat people to stay alive, yet has tons of needless exposition that goes nowhere, it takes forever to get to the gore, and it lacks the gleeful ridiculousness of the Beyond and City of the Living Dead. But does Gino De Rossi provide enough carnage to earn the Godfather of Gore another 5 barf bag rating? Let's go to the gore card. In terms of gross anatomy, House by the Cemetery mostly delivers. We're treated to a knife through the head, death by poker, one ripped out throat, and a throat slash and decapitation. You may have noticed there's not one bit of ocular mayhem in this movie, but that's only because Fulci wasn't pleased with the special effects shot of the poker puncturing the realtor's eyeball and cut it. The splatter here is solid, but I wish there was more of it, and that's why I'm giving House by the Cemetery a 4 barf bag rating. This is a sick flick, but we expect more from Lucio Fulci around here. Looking for more Fulci mayhem? Then check out my review of City of the Living Dead. You'll find a link here on the screen. I'll meet you over there. Until next time, I'm Mike Bracken, aka The Horror Geek, bringing you all the splatter that matters.